Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lawrence Jackson, and I am the Grants and Programs Manager with the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. I would like to welcome you to our Facebook Live discussion series. And today's discussion will be focused on how to assist youth and young adults with succeeding in the workforce. Joining with us will be McKinzie Harper, founder of UnTapped Good. Throughout our discussion today, feel free to include your questions in the chat, and we will get to them before we depart today. McKinzie, thank you for joining us. Could you give us a brief overview of UnTapped Good?
Of course, and thank you so much for having me. UnTapped Good is truly a response to the past year, and it's been an idea that's been kind of nagging in the back of my brain for a while now, but it truly is a response to seeing unmet community needs within Columbus and untapped talent, especially in young people in our community, and trying to understand how do we bring those together. So we are serving young people, creating project-based employment opportunities for them that also have a community benefit because they're working within the social sector or the broader public sector. We are a fiscally sponsored nonprofit project of Community Shares in Mid-Ohio, and we've been around for just around a year. So we're definitely still in our startup phase, but excited about all we've been able to accomplish in our first year, providing close to almost 30 different paid projects for our first pilot.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very necessary, as you said, in response to this past year. There are a lot of programs, yours included, that are really coming to the call. They're answering the call as to what we see with youth and young adults trying to get into employment. So with that thought, what are the trends that you're seeing with youth wanting to enter the workforce?
I'll start with some of the more staggering and I would say definitely more negative trends. I mean, we saw that more than 90% of unemployed young people couldn't access any income over the last year, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. We also saw that even before the pandemic, it was the unemployment rate for young people was double that of adults. We also know that this is disproportionately impacting those that come from a lower socioeconomic background or from communities of color. And so we know that this is an access issue. And I think that what we also know about young people and their willingness to join the workforce on a more positive note is that they are no longer accepting this binary that you have to choose between work that pays and work that matters to you. And we're seeing this across every industry where young people are really pushing to have corporate social responsibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion at the very core of their work, not just something that's nice to talk about every once in a while, but something that really matters on a day-to-day basis. And so you see that young people really want to have an impact that doesn't just happen in one part of their life, but across the spectrum, and is more than just a 9-to-5 job that they leave at the end of the day, but something that really contributes positively to their community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well stated. Yes, very, very special, very momentum driven when it comes to not only finding a job that pays well, but something that you actually care about, something that you actually believe in. And I feel like now is a time that we're able to sit back and really view what we do day to day. I mean, because it could be taken away from anything, and now it's included is a pandemic. So it's really important that we focus in on what we, not only what we have to do, but what we want to do as well. So on the other side, the flip side of that, what value would you see an employer getting from hiring a youth or a young adult?
Yeah, and I think that it goes back to what we know about Gen Z. And I just recently learned that the generation coming up behind Gen Z is Gen Alpha. And we know that they're the most socially conscious, diverse generation that we've seen yet. And most importantly, to a lot of the organizations that we're working with, is that they're digitally native. So what these young people bring to an employer in regards to value is not just someone who's adaptable and understands technology, but they understand problems and social constructs in a different way and a more intimate way because they've been raised in a different way and in a different generation. And so over the past year, as we've seen social justice movements really take center stage and pressure being put on employers to really think about themselves in the context of their community, young people are incredible value in that regard because they are in it. They're taking to the streets. They're action oriented, and they know that they are going to be the most impacted by the changes happening today. Any change that's happening within our community, within our workforce development system, within our economy is going to be inherited by them. And they are really going to have to bear whatever burden comes from, especially the recovery that we have ahead of us. So I think that a young person really provides a unique and fresh perspective when coming in as a new or young employee. But I also think that they obviously bring a certain set of skills that make them very adaptable. And I think something that we've seen is that young people who are given a chance by an employer, and I'm sure you can speak to this, they're loyal and they really want to work hard for you. When you give them that break and you show them that you have confidence in them and that you believe in their unique experiences and celebrate their lived experiences, not just tell them, oh, you can't talk about that in a in a corporate setting. Talk about the things that really matter to you or the issues that you've had in your life that you've overcome, and then you uplift them and give them an opportunity to succeed. You're going to have incredibly loyal employees who are willing to work hard, who are willing to ask questions, and willing to do the best possible work for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely echo that through personal sentiments. I remember working in a warehouse to where I was just being told what to do, and then we changed up and you had to do it this way. And you don't necessarily get the why all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
our youth and young adults, as you mentioned, we work with different providers around Central Ohio. Me specifically, I oversee the side of the Achieve More and Prosper program, or AMP, which is an innovative program that can help low-income young adults build career paths, find employment, and really break down the cycle of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Offers a wide range of services specifically tailored to the individual. So this isn't about programs, it's about people. Just as to your point, I want an employer that's looking at me as a person and not just a number. So very good, very good. So you kind of alluded to this, but if you could just specifically outline the reason why you started UnTapped Good.
Yeah, and I would say that it's been nagging in the back of my mind for quite some time. Prior to founding UnTapped Good, I worked for a few years at the Columbus Partnership, specifically on the Smart Columbus initiative. And while I was there, I had this really unique opportunity to work with partners across the social and public sector. And I also had the opportunity to work with young people and students. One particular experience that I think really stuck with me and was kind of an aha moment for me was when we did a design challenge where we asked young people to come up with whatever crazy ideas they had for the future of transportation. And I was amazed. First of all, I should say I was amazed by the talent in the young folks as young as 10 years old, coming up with apps and coming up with 3D prototypes. So I should stop there and say, whatever you thought you could do at that age, with the technology that's out there, with all of the information that's out there on the internet, these young people are in a completely different world and light years ahead of where I was at the time, doing incredible things. But what really stuck out to me was the different types of solutions that came from our different schools. And so we had some young people who were coming from areas in which they live and see on a day-to-day basis some of the hairy, complex, wicked problems that we're dealing with in our community. And they see it on the ground level. They're seeing their parents impacted by it. They're seeing their families and their neighbors impacted by it. And it was heartbreaking for me to hear middle schoolers as young as 10, 12 years old pitching the idea of a human trafficking survivor shuttle because victims of human trafficking are scared to get on in public spaces or on public transit, and we need to provide them a way to enter the community. Or, you know, the young children who had the idea of a food desert shuttle because they had a grocery store closed down in their community and they could no longer get to fresh groceries. And there was this moment of saying, these young people were given, the world was their oyster, come up with whatever crazy idea you had for transportation. And what it came back down to for them was what was deeply impacting them on a personal level at that time, what they were seeing in their community. And they used that lived experience and created really exciting ideas. And ever since that experience, I've been wanting to try to build whatever a pipeline or pathway could look like. So when those middle schoolers are ready to leave Columbus City schools and come and join the workforce, that we somehow get them into the nonprofit sector, because we need that type of passion and we need that type of connection to the real issues that we're seeing in our community, so that we can solve them and start to create a more resilient social sector that actually represents the population here in Columbus. And so if I'm to go all the way back, that really is the inspiration behind Untapped Good. Then comes the pandemic, and it puts it all into perspective for me, because a former intern of mine reached out, and she's had the cards stacked against her for her entire life, and came up against yet another challenge with the pandemic. She could no longer afford to finish her degree. She was in almost to that last year in the home stretch, and she was really struggling to get work. She wants to work with clients. She's a freelancer, graphic designer, and she wants to work with clients that align with her values. And she didn't want to sacrifice that, but what she found was she was getting low to underpaid work, or midway through a project, they would say we no longer have the funds, and she would end up with nothing to show for all the work that she put into the project. And she was really struggling to find work. So truly Untapped Good came to be out of an immediate response to her need. And then we decided to build kind of a platform around her. How do we support a young person who has these talents to give, who has skills that they want to bring to bear to support the community in a way that works both for those organizations that are already stretched thin, that already have a lack of capacity and need folks now more than ever, with young people who deserve to be paid a fair wage. And so what we do as the intermediary is obviously connect the two, the Untapped Good talent and those unmet community needs. And that's, and I know we're going to talk about this in a few, but that's what's led to now our next pilot, which will be focusing on how do we replicate this and create a platform for other young people in Columbus to take advantage of it.
Awesome. Awesome. That was a real telling opportunity that you were talking about with Smart Columbus, when the youth that were presented an opportunity to just design whatever they wanted to, and their imagination runs wild. I have a 7-year-old son, and I gave him Minecraft, and he plays Minecraft on pretty much everything that he could get his hands on. And it is amazing just seeing their expressions through digital technology, through games, and just see what they can build if they just had a blank canvas. Hear that and to have that passion to then integrate what I see and what I'm living through. And this is what I want to use this opportunity for. It is quite telling, quite telling. So Untapped Good is working with one of the AMP Achieve More and Prosper program providers, Impact Community Action. Why do you feel like AMP and other programs like this and Untapped Good is really important to this community?
Oh yeah, where do I even begin? When we first started with Untapped Good, I wanted to make sure that we weren't reinventing the wheel, or that we were really finding where we could provide some unique value within the greater kind of youth workforce and education space, because there are folks like Impact Community Action that are doing incredible work. And so having the opportunity to get to know the Impact team, and specifically the Achieve More and Prosper program, has been transformative, and I would say the life cycle that we've had thus far with Untapped Good, because they've really put into perspective what you mentioned about seeing that whole person and understanding that when you have young people that are up against an employment barrier or an education barrier, it's not just an employment or education barrier. This is a huge barrier in their life, something that they've have the need for trauma-informed care. They need social services and support, and they need someone that they can trust to help walk through this process with them. And so when I learned about the Achieve More, Prosper program, it really helped to put into perspective, we can do everything possible in Untapped Good to create kind of this matchmaking experience to help support local organizations and providing them with untapped talent. But we need to think about how do we support those young people and take this kind of holistic approach. And who better to learn from than Impact Community Action and the Achieve More Prosper program. They help out of school and in school youth, and they have an incredible program that helps with coaching the individuals up on whatever pathway they want to take. And so what I really love about that type of program is making sure these young people know that they're in control. I think a lot of young people, all they want to feel is that they have some semblance of control of what's going to happen with them, especially after the past year, which has felt incredibly disruptive to whatever they thought was going to happen with, whether that's the last year of high school or their first year as an adult. Out in the world, they're looking for some sense of control, and they're looking for that sense of support where they have a safe place to land and someone they can come and ask those what they may feel are silly questions. And that's what those AMP coaches are there for, which is why we wanted to align with this program, because we want to learn from the best on how do we support young people in a way that's looking out for them, not just as someone who's going to churn out deliverables for a client, but as someone who wants to build economic mobility, who wants to have a fulfilling career and a lifestyle that works for them and whatever their personal and family needs are. So I couldn't say enough about this program and the importance of programs like it, because it's our next generation. They're going to be the future policymakers, teachers, leaders, doctors, and service folks who are helping to keep our economy and society running, whether we're in the middle of a global pandemic or not. So investing in them and making them feel empowered, I feel like it'll pay off in dividends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be different. And we're seeing that now. We can't operate like we have been in the past 10 years, in the last 5 years. We have to make a different approach. And we when it comes to our youth and young adults, we got to engage these participants in meaningful employment and training activities, not to just check the boxes, but it has to be meaningful and purposeful. And again, going back to the employer that actually cares about the human side of their employee, going to operate differently. What I like about, go ahead.
And to the future, that was really where we found the synergy with Impact Community Action.
Yes.
They were the first to say, we have young people who are excited and creative and have a lot of energy that we need to find something to channel that energy for. They were proactively looking for ways to create pathways that were actually relevant to what the future will look like for these young people. So they are being proactive. They're saying, okay, we know that entrepreneurship, we know that, maybe working multiple jobs, we know that careers will just not look the same that they do today.
Right.
So how do we get out ahead of that and make sure that the young people they're working with, those who are facing a barrier or have low self-confidence in their abilities, that we bolster them up and get them ready for that future. We give them the leg up that they typically have felt like they haven't been given, and give them the foot in the door into, what those future pathways will look like and how to create a sustained income that also is really fulfilling and meaningful to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't tell you how many cybersecurity training programs I've signed off on in the past year. Like it's totally moving in an upward trend when it comes to what are these jobs going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. So yeah, absolutely. So what would you say a youth who is on the fence? What would you say to a youth that is on the fence about getting a job or an internship?
Oh, I would say let's start with what your passions are. What gets you excited at the beginning of the day when you wake up, and let's try to find something that really aligns with that. I think, to go back to the AMP program, I think a lot of folks are hesitant, young folks are hesitant to get into a job or internship experience because they have maybe preconceived notions about what that will look like. Oh, I'm just pushing papers and grabbing coffees, or I'm just doing entry level work. And I think that there needs to be a little bit of a flipping of the script to say that that is not how any of your experiences have to look like.
Right.
You get to have, again, providing them with that sense of control that we want to create something that works for you and your unique skill set and your unique lived experience. And that does not have to look like what you've been previously told a typical job, career, internship looks like. I'll also say from my personal experiences, internships also showed me what I didn't want. And so if I'm talking
Yes.
to a young person, having that experience as early as possible will show you both what really gets you going in the morning, but it'll also show you, okay, I think this is for others, not me, and will help kind of push you in the direction of what will really be meaningful and fulfilling for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about experience.
Yep.
About experience and exposure. We have a lot of youth that come in our doors thinking that they want to be a nurse until they realize that you have to pull blood. Are you
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with blood and things like that? One of the big benefits about the Achieve More and Prosper program is our ability for work experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So the name is interchanging work experience or internship, but it allows a participant to go and work for somebody in the career field that they are trying to get into or attempting to educate themselves more so on to get their feet wet when it comes to that job. And so it's paid for by the program. The wages are on our end, and we partner up with these employers in the community, and it's really exposure for both of them. A lot of times, one of the questions I asked was enticing an employer to actually go out and hire a young adult. And it's for them to get their feet wet with working with young adults. And also the young adult is getting their feet wet when it comes to the career field.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phrase that you used that I want to highlight. In the Achieve More and Prosper program, we call our case managers, quote unquote, AMP coaches. We very much so dislike the connotations that come along with case managers. So we wanted to give it a different outlook. And you had mentioned the coaching early on, and that's huge. When we talk to our youth about coaches, I mean, that's some
Yep.
of the first idea is going back to their sports. And yes, my coach wanted me to become better, and that's why we went to AMP coaches as opposed to the case manager, because it's not just managing a case.
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking at just this being another number on our caseload. It's really about the individual as a human. So we want to emphasize coaching this individual into their next. Yeah. So certifications are a big thing in the workforce, especially on our end, especially since the pandemic hindered a lot of people from continuing their higher education. What do you feel are the benefits for a youth going after a trade or another career to gain new skills?
Of course, yeah, it's been an interesting year in the work training and education space. I would say when I first hear that question, it sends me back to as a young person when I was constantly told, "Oh, those programs aren't for you. You've got college to head towards. You've got to think about college." And there are times in which I think would I have been able to get to the work that really matters to me most and the work that aligns with my skill set and my experience faster had I thought about education in a different way. So I hope after the past year, this starts a good conversation about what does it mean to actually prepare someone for their future, and that hopefully we can let go of this idea that it's a 4-year degree or bust. There are so many digital certifications, online certifications, short-term certifications that you can stack on top of each other that can evolve with you as you grow as a professional. So what I like about it is the flexibility. And I think this is what resonates with young people when it comes to certifications and upskilling in a way that isn't linear, because they don't see themselves as fitting into one box. They don't
Right.
see their career as I'm going to start here and I'm going to work up in the same organization for the rest of my career. That's just not, first of all, what we know in the data to be true about what the of work looks like, nor is it what you know that Gen Z or even millennials are really looking for. So certifications help you to continue to hone your craft, but also to help you evolve along the way as you're building your career. And I would say that the benefits of going in the direction of a trade or of a certification is that you can have that sense of control that you're kind of in charge of along the way. I'm going to take control of what it is that I am going to add to that resume, what it is that I'm going to, those really tactical skills that you can list and know, okay, I've achieved mastery or I've achieved advanced in this. That's really tangible that can be turned back over to an employer that you can point to. And I think it really speaks the language that a lot of employers currently speak to. I know that obviously there's a lot of, and I have a lot of opinions on the hiring practices of setting the arbitrary bachelor's degree on a job description. But I think if you can point to what they're looking for is something that speaks to them to a certain level of skill. And I think
Yes.
we're starting to see the trend that certifications meet that, especially if you're finding them through the right partners. I know that Creation, at the Workforce Development Board, we're talking about the Udacity partnership that has been in the works over the past year. That's huge. Those nano degrees are going
Yes.
to accelerate folks into in-demand, exciting, somewhat creative careers in a third of the time if they were to go about it in a traditional sense. So they're also efficient. I think folks, especially those who are displaced over the past year or young people who feel like they're having a hard time breaking into a new role, a certification can be a catalyst, and there's a good ROI because it translates into a really tangible skill that can be directly applied in that work setting, whether it's a freelance role or in a more formal work experience.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the cost of college is not getting any cheaper.
Nope.
I do emphasize that with the youth that I mentor and talk to on a day to day, but there's much more opportunities out here.
Mhm.
Or you're absolutely right. Stackable credentials is what we call it in our world. The more credentials you have, the more opportunities you have for different types of employment, not just what you thought that you were interested in. It could lead down a different path. I mean, how many of us have our college degree and are working in the same field? My hand isn't raised. So yeah, it's a very much so 2020, a lot of things. Just I hope that for this upcoming generation that they're paying attention to all the shifts and turns. So speaking of this upcoming generation, this upcoming year, what are you looking forward to most with your organization?
Well, I'm incredibly excited to continue the work with Impact Community Action and the Achieve More and Prosper program. We start with our very first participant within the next few weeks, where they will be doing a 10-week work experience with us in digital marketing, where we are going to be able to provide real on-trend work experience for someone who's creative, who loves writing, who's really passionate about issues within the community, and give them a space to channel all of their talents into the nonprofit and social sector through UnTapped Good. So we're really excited about that opportunity. But we know that the past year has all been about pilots and trying to learn as much about the ecosystem and the young people we want to serve, in order to build a platform that actually serves their needs. So behind the scenes, we're also working through all of the fun technology side of things, understanding how do we create a platform that really helps to connect young people to exciting opportunities, whether that's a paid internship in the social or public sector, a project-based opportunity if they are going the freelancing route, or an opportunity to work with UnTapped Good in some way, shape, or form. So we're really now doubling down on what does that scale look like? Because we know that we want this to live in a digital platform, but we also need to do it intentionally so that we make sure that the young people we want to serve, one, can find us and access us, and two, we build the platform with their needs in mind. So that'll be something that's exciting coming up through the end of the year.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. Very excited for you and that participant as well. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful experience for the both of you.
Yes, very much looking forward to it.
Good, good deal. So, how can somebody that is seeking more information or collaboration connect with Untapped Good?
Yeah, of course. So you can find us at untappedgood.org, or you can reach out to me at McKinzie, McKinzie at untappedgood.org. Shoot us a note, and we'll either help you to find young talent that you can work with, or identify a potential collaboration opportunity between our two organizations.
All right, outstanding. Well, it was definitely a pleasure talking with you today. I would like to thank you once again for sharing your valuable information about how to help youth and young adults succeed in the workforce. It's a very important topic to be discussing today. So I very much so appreciate your time and attention to this. If you would like more information about the Achieve More and Prosper program, excuse me, please visit the wdbco.org Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio website. And I thank everybody for watching.